Welcome back to the shop and to the channel. Well, I'm back to work on getting these wheel dressers finished for the black diamond drill grinder. I've got quite a bit of this completed. In the last video we finished up these holders for the diamond nibs, and now we've got to connect them to the pivot. I have some scrap material here, no idea what it's from or what it is, but I think this will work to fit in here. I'm going to have to cut this to length. For this one on the front, this is going to need a 15-degree angle at the top of it. And for the one on the back, that cope needs to be a 15-degree angle. What I tend to do is cope the bottom of this so it'll mate with that pivot. And then I'm going to TIG weld it together. I have a 1-inch end mill that should work for this. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this mounted in the vise and cope the end of it first and see how that fits, and then I should be able to go ahead and cut this to length and then machine that 15-degree angle on it. Get this piece of material here mounted in this vise. To do that, first I'm going to put down a parallel. Then I got a V-block here, nice brown and sharp V-block. And this should be enough to keep that from going anywhere. Well, next I want to go ahead and find the center of that piece of stock, so I'll put an edge finder in. And we'll go ahead and fire up the mill and find the center of this piece of stock. I might as well go ahead and find the bottom edge too. Lock that down in the middle and find the edge here. Alright, that puts the spindle right over the center and on the edge. Let's go ahead and swap this out for an end mill. So 1-inch 2-flute end mill on a 3/4 inch shank. Now this material is 890, 875. I thought this was 7/8, so 875, something like that. I need to move the table 1/2 inch that way. 1/2 inch. That puts that end mill right on the edge. And I'll need to cut in 1/2 of 7/8, which would be 7/16. And then that will be, should be the minimum that I can go. I can go a little bit further because it'll just cut off a little bit on the edge. So I need to go at least 7/16 of an inch in from there. All right, so now what I need to do, what I am going to do is just start machining this up. I'm going to plunge. I think I'll plunge cut. We'll see how that goes. I don't know that I want to side mill this. That's an awful lot of material. We'll see how it goes with the plunge cut. Might try side milling. Maybe the last little bit we'll side mill, but we'll start with the plunge cut. Alright, I've got this set for about 420 RPM. I am going to use the mist coolant, even though I hate this stuff. I don't want to burn up this end mill. This is a nice end mill. But I think what I am going to do is I'm going to put a rag up underneath here just to try to soak up some of this stuff. This stuff stinks. It's not a horrible smell, but it's bad enough that I don't like it. See, that went okay. I think I might try side milling just to see what it'll do. make a lot of noise. I feel like I need to go slower. I think I am going to go slower. Take this down to about 360 RPM. I'm just hand feeding it. I have no idea what this material is made from. Well, that went interestingly enough. These chips are really weird. It's like hair. I hope this stuff is weldable. I didn't check it. So, it's not magnetic. I wonder if it's stainless. Being stainless steel is not a terrible thing. It might be fine. Of course, this is always a challenge when your primary metal supplier is your scrap bin. But that fits in there really nice. Now, I know that this is not stainless. This piece isn't. But I'm thinking this is. I never bothered check to see if it was magnetic. But is it weldable? Because I think that's a good cut on there. We'll have to find out. All right. Let's set up to do the other one. It's going to be a little bit different. Okay, so this one needs a 15-degree angle on the end of it for the cope. So what I have here is I got a 15-degree angle block. We'll put that here in the back, and then we'll put the V-block in and set the V-block on that angle block, and then we'll slide this down here until the end is coming out on the right side of the vise, and hope that that little bit right there is enough to clamp it. I don't know if that's going to be enough. I suppose I need to bring this out a little bit. I'm going to make sure I've got enough angle here, because what I don't want, there we go, I want that setting on there, V-block sitting on the angle, that giving me as much as I can, and this end over here is not touching the base of the vise. I should still be on center. That should not have been affected, although I think I am going to raise the table up because I don't think I have enough travel here. I'll bring you around to the other side. Okay, hopefully this makes sense. This bottom piece is not touching the bottom of the vise. It's not constraining this angle. Let me loosen that a touch, because this isn't sitting at my 15 degrees. Okay, that's sitting there. That's on the angle block. That is barely clearing. All right, I think we are at 15 degrees. All right, let's keep this going again. Should be good. See how it fits? Yeah, it fits nice. All right, let's go ahead and get this out of here and figure out how we're going to cut these to length. All right, a little quick deburring here. Now, my print shows that these things need to be about 3-inch 200 thousandths long. So I'm not sure what the exact length is going to be. So I think I am going to first cut these to about 3.5 inches long. That'll give me a little bit to come off. We'll make the final determination when I mock it up on the drill grinder. These are not necessarily going to need to be precise, so I'm not too worried if it's a little bit off. Close enough will be close enough for this. All right, I'm going to take these over to the bandsaw and cut these down to about 3.5 inches from the inside of that cope. Well, it was my intention to cut these down on the bandsaw, but this turned out to be entirely, well, I don't know if it was too hard or what, but it was taking forever. So I ended up getting out the zip wheel and cutting them down. I mean, they're a lot longer than they need to be. So I can take these now over to the drill grinder and kind of get an idea of how much I'm going to need to take off. All right, so this one here on the front is going to get the straight cope. And so this is going to need to get angled back by 15 degrees. And it's looking, if I want it there, maybe there. If that's the back end, slightly above center. So that's what I'm thinking, is that it needs to come up at an angle like that. So I think we can start with that. Yeah, I like that. Okay, I think that one's good. This one on the back, this cope is angled. And so this is going to need to be somewhere probably, again, slightly above center. So we'll see how this works out. But I'm almost thinking, I'm kind of thinking that almost a full width of this. So this one gets cut off. This one gets cut off straight. This gets welded here. And then this one gets cut off at an angle, 15 degrees that way. This will be set here. Got to figure out just how far back. Probably mount that a little bit closer to the front like the model was. I think that'll work out pretty good. Well, once I cut these off, I'll need to weld all this stuff up. But before I go and do that, I want to practice. So I took some of the cutoffs here and I went ahead and coped those. Still need to deburr them a little bit. I still have some of the cold rolled steel that was used for the pivots, and I'll go ahead and cut off a couple of small pieces here and we'll practice. We'll at least see if this material is weldable. I'm assuming it's stainless steel. I hope it's stainless steel. I've got some stainless filler rod. Stainless will weld to carbon steel without any problem. You just have to use the right filler rod. And I do have some filler rod over there that's designed for either welding to stainless or welding stainless to other materials. I forget the wire designation, but when we get there, we'll try that. So, and I kind of want to practice this before I go any further on these. So I think that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to cut off a couple of pieces here and do a little practice welding. I did a little practicing off camera, and yeah, this will weld. I did use I believe this is a 309, it's a 308, ER 308 welding rod. Generally used for stainless steel, but it will weld stainless to carbon steel as well. This is proof. Not the greatest welds, that's for sure. I definitely needed the practice. Well, I still need practice. A lot of undercut here. I didn't use filler on all of this. Next up, I think what I want to do is machine the angles, or the angle on that, and then cut this down and machine it flat. So yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and cut this off again with the zip wheel, and then I'll mount it up in the vise. I'll use that end mill to machine this flat, deburr it on the sander. And then for this one's going to be a little trickier because I need this angle to be at 15 degrees, and I need it to be in line with this cope. So getting that figured out too. will be interesting. So let me get this set up in the mill and I'll bring you back. All right, it looks pretty good. I'll take this over to the grinder and see how this looks. If I'm gonna have to make it any shorter. I'd rather make it a little bit long than a little bit short. All right, the length of the other one was just perfect, so I didn't need to make any additional changes there. This one right here, I've got it mounted up on that 15-degree block. Just located it by eye to make sure that this cope was plumb. I used a piece of that cutoff that I was going to use for a practice piece and kind of put it up there and stuck it in that cope, and it looks pretty good. Does it need to be exact? No, close enough is going to be good enough. So now we want to get this coolant here located a little bit better. That should be good. I don't think it's going to hit anything. And now I'm just going to machine this until I get an angle on it. The risk is that I have to, if I take it out to check it for length, of course the risk is getting it lined back up might be tricky, but you know, cross that bridge when I come to it. Taking 50 thousandths off. I'm only cutting on the bottom edge so I can be a little bit aggressive here. Let's just do 25 thousandths this time. Another 25 thousandths or so. Almost cleaned up. Probably another 25 thousandths will clean this up. So that'll put me at about 150 thousandths total. Just for good measure, I'm going to take another 25 thousandths off. All right, we'll take this out and do a test fit. Hopefully, I won't have to put it back in here. Well, so far so good. I think this is a good length. I think it'll work out. Oddly enough, my model could have been a little bit better. I think where I went a little bit wrong is the holes for these nibs could have been deeper, and I may fix that later because it is a little bit on the tight side, but I'm not too worried about that. I could have cut this one down a little bit more, probably even closer to my mark, but it still works. So now what I need to do is clean these off, use some acetone, and we'll start with the coped end first, and we'll tack these together. I'll tack on the top, and then before I fully weld it out, we'll go set them on the grinder and see how they look. Give me a little bit to clean these off with some acetone, and I'll get one of them clamped up. We'll see. I'll show you how this is going to work. Well, hopefully you can hear me over the fan of my welder. I have a 1/16 inch shim here on the table. I've got the vertical piece clamped down in. I'm lining up this pivot weld clamp. And I want to make sure this is rotated so that this cope lines up. That looks pretty good there. All right, I think that'll work. And then I want this to be 100 thousandths from the end. That seemed to be what worked right, so about right there. Now I need to kind of hold that in position, and just gonna put tack in there. Let's see. All right, that looks pretty good. Now all I want to do is turn this over and put a tack on the other side, hopefully without breaking this one. Should be all right. You know, I think I'm going to put one more tack over here. All right, now this piece will get mounted here, or welded here, and so the nib is going to come out from here. This is the one that goes on the back, so it's got to be positioned this way. And I want this holder to be pretty daggone close to the front, so something like that. I want to see if I can't clamp this down. All right, I got the camera moved around to the other side. Of course, I'm just getting arc flash because this damn helmet. I don't think I got a good tack because I can only see a big white blur now. All right, I'll do the same thing with the other one, and I'll bring you back when I get the other piece tacked up. All right, I have these tacked together and got them placed on the drill grinder, and everything looks like it's gonna work okay. Yeah, I could probably move this a little bit closer, but I've got lots of room here for adjustment. Thing is, if I touch edge of the wheel here, right there, kind of touches all the way across, so that's a good thing, right? This one here on the back though, this one has me a little concerned. Let me remove this and I'll show you why. So let me back this out. I'm going to touch the end of the nib right there. All right. But if I move it to the back, it is not touching the back of that wheel. As a matter of fact, it's probably 25 to 50 thousandths away. So that means if I use this on the back of the wheel, this wheel will not be perpendicular to the face. Does that matter? I mean, I'm only grinding the web on this part of the face. Unless these holes for this pin and this pin did not get drilled at exactly right angles, I thought my setup was pretty good. To be honest, when I did this, I don't think I ran an indicator along it to make sure that it was perpendicular to this. I think this is good. I think this pivot point is exactly where it needs to be. It's in the right plane. This one is not, and I don't know why, and I don't know if it matters. Well, after closer inspection here, I've got a little stare at combination square. If I place this on the front of the wheel and I bring it down, I don't know how well that shows up on camera, but that is not at a right angle. So maybe these pivot points are drilled at right angles. So now the question is, should this be offset so it grinds this taper? Is this wheel supposed to be tapered? I don't know. And unfortunately, by the time this video comes out, it's going to be a little while because I try to get a week or two ahead so I have time to edit them. So by the time you're watching this, I have already edited this video and it's been uploaded to YouTube. Question is this base wrong? Meaning I should have made this pivot at an angle, or is the wheel just, you know, a rough wheel and I'm supposed to dress it anyway? Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to have to do some research. Hopefully I can figure that out. All right, let's see if I can get a protractor in here. Maybe this will work better. All right. All right, what's that reading? 2 degrees maybe? 2.5. So 2.5 degrees. Should this be at a 2.5 degree angle? I still have a little bit more work to do because once I get this finished welded, I still need to work out this mechanism, which means I still need to drill a hole into this in this piece for the pivot to work. It is the next day, and unfortunately the news is not great. I reached out to Rush Machinery, it's the company I got this grinding wheel from, and they did let me know that on the BW90, which this is, the edge of the wheel is indeed dressed at 5 degrees. I figured I was getting a little bit of error trying to measure that without measuring straight into the diameter. Just didn't have the room, which is why I was getting about 2.5 degrees, but it is in fact 5 degrees, which means that this pivot is wrong. I need to shift it 5 degrees this way. So now the question is, how am I going to do that? I could maybe machine a plug for this and weld it up, but I'm a little worried about warping this. I could thread these holes and plug them and, you know, use some red Loctite or something like that, plug them, and then maybe stake the threads or something like that, or maybe even put a little bit of weld around it just to keep them from moving, and then set this up and rebore it. Setting up the piece to drill this at 5 degrees, that's not the issue. The issue really is, what do I do with these holes? Right? So it means that this back face is not going to have a dresser on it, at least for the time being. That does not mean that this is for naught. I'm not going to remake this base because that would be entirely too much work, but I need to figure out how to repair this pivot point. So if you have some ideas, drop it down in the comments. I am interested in hearing what you might suggest. In the meantime, that's not going to prevent me from finishing off this face dresser. This is really the more important one. I only need this part of the wheel dressed for doing split points. I'm not going to do split points on everything if I don't need to, so I'm not going to worry about that. So what I will do in the meantime is I will finish welding up this piece, right? So it's welded all the way around, make it look as nice as I can with my limited welding skills. And then what I'm going to need to do then, I need to finish machining this pivot. It's going to stick out, maybe not this far, but it's going to stick out a little bit because it needs to also pivot on this plate, which means I need to machine this down just a little bit for it to mount on that plate. And then I need to shorten this pivot down and then machine it so it will fit through this bore. It's a little bit tight for a 1/2 inch, which is good. And then I'm going to need to drill and tap the end of it for a screw just to retain it. But then I'm going to need to machine a peg that's going to stick out from this arm. And what that does is as I extend and shorten the length of this rod, that causes the whole thing to pivot, this to pivot, which will drive this rod, which will make this go back and forth to face the wheel. So you face it from the front. So yeah, that's what I need to do next. So I need to weld this up. Let me take this over to the welding table and finish welding this up. Well, off camera, I went ahead and finished welding both of these up. You know, some of these welds ain't bad, yeah, but I'd say very few of them. This is evidence that I don't do enough TIG welding. But they're welded, they're not going anywhere. I think that's going to wrap up this video, though. I decided I am going to drill and tap a hole in here for some kind of a set screw for this dresser, which is the one that goes for the face of the wheel. And it's mostly because once I set that, it's not going to move, because the distance between the face of the wheel and the tip of the drill that I'm grinding probably won't change much, but I can move that wheel back and forth. There's adjustment to it, so maybe that'll make more sense when I go to put this thing together. And I need to figure out what I'm going to do for that edge dresser, because this thing needs to be angled at 5 degrees back this way, so I got to do something about that base. So I think in the meantime, I need to call it quits for this week. I'm trying to get out in the shop every day, and work has been kind of crazy, and it is that time of year where I'm spending more time outside doing things than I am spending time in the shop. So I've got to wrap this one up. Yeah, if you have some ideas on how you would fix that 5 degree mistake, please leave a comment down below. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give it a thumbs down. You're not going to hurt my feelings, and it's good to know what my viewers like to see and what they don't like to see. If you're not a subscriber to the channel and you like this content, consider hitting that subscribe button, hit that bell icon. Subscriptions are free. If you'd like to support the channel in other ways, there's some links down in the description that can explain how to do that. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.